there's a lot of things when it comes to stick handling that it's hard for me to say, but I just learned when I started coaching the technical side of stick handling, right? Your top hand doing the work, your bottom hand being a little looser, stuff like that. I always knew how to stick handle, but I didn't really know how to cue people and teach people how to do that. So start with the basics and add upon that as you go. And then after you have those basics mastered from a stationary position, I kind of added some movement to the drills, right? So I would do the same things that I did stationary, now skating, because as we all know, the game of hockey is played while you're moving. You're very rarely going to be stationary, stick handling the puck. So you got to be able to make those moves, make those fakes, and make those different dangles at medium to top speed, right?
Absolutely. And I like what you say too about like understanding the audience, right? Because I think that's number one anytime you're designing a skill. So yeah, I mean, for the majority of players you're going to work with, the stationary move is first, and then you add speed, and then you add either a decision or you add in some pressure, right? And you start to execute that, and you start to put it into a game scenario. And that's really kind of your progression is, basic / slow, add speed, add decision making, add pressure, apply to a game scenario.
Absolutely. And those are a few of the things I was kind of thinking about moving forward for the next kind of series of drills. How do we take what we just learned here and now apply it specifically to the game, right? And I think as my coaching is evolving, that's more what I'm thinking about when it comes to practice planning and quote unquote skill development. How can I take this particular skill we've just learned and apply it to a specific situation in a game, right? Instead of just hammering through drills and hammering through all this stuff, let's now try to apply it to the game, right? How do I apply this stick handling move to a situation? So in a lot of times during the course, I would say, if you find yourself in this spot, now you can do this move to get yourself to the next spot, right? And not just, let's do 1,000 toe drags today just to do 1,000 toe drags, but how is it applicable to a game situation?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big proponent too of doing, even when you're in the stationary / very slow phase, of doing whenever possible the maneuver in an area that you'll use it in the game. So rather than doing toe drags, below the goal line or behind the net where it's a less likelihood of it happening, add that with your feet facing into the zone, near the blue line, right? Where you're making the move on a zone entry where you're going to progress into. Right? If you're working on a simple pivot, there's no point to add pivots. If the guy's a forward, why not add that pivot at the hash marks so they're actually also working on a breakout sequence, right? Like that. Yeah. That always kind of drives me nuts is when you see the seemingly randomly placed, skill drill where it's just so easy to tie that into something that happens.
And then come game time when that player's in that spot, it feels more natural to him, right? Because he's done it 100 times instead of just straight down the wall, straight back down the middle, right? And that's just something you kind of made me think of as you said that hockey players are creatures of habit, right? Not always the smartest, sorry guys, but once they get used to doing something, they're used to doing something. So if they're coming off the wall in that pivot position, making a toe drag in practice, they're more likely to be able to pull that move off come game time. And that's what we want.
Right. And skill acquisition is habit based, right? Yeah. It's just muscular repetition and getting that sequence together. So if they now are comfortable in that area of the ice executing that drill, they're not even thinking about it. So you're actually giving them extra without even telling them what you're doing, right? But it takes, I think that's an important part for a coach to do, is have that foresight to say, you know what, we're going to do it in this area, because now when we go to actually move into a higher speed or a game situation or a decision or a pressure situation, you're already comfortable making this maneuver in this area.